Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
Doug just played through Paranormasight, The Seven Mysteries of Hanjo.
Yes.
This is one of those games that I know nothing about, and you just said, this is really cool, and I'm playing it. So
it is very cool, and I'm playing it. Yes. Or I played it, yeah.
So it's like a text adventure, visual novel, like that genre is what we're
hardcore,
talking, right?
hardcore visual novel. I think this actually might be the first one I've played.
Ooh.
Like I've played like even Danganronpa, I'd still say has more gameplay than this one. This is just like straight up.
Yep.
Your main gameplay feature is reading.
Hit that X button for the next text bubble.
Exactly. Yeah. So Paranormasight is a game I've been kind of interested in because like I don't know why I've just never thought of this because when people like, do you like horror movies? Like I don't really like horror movies, but like I love reading horror stuff. Like I've grown up like reading a ton of Stephen King, ton of different. I think I've probably read more horror books than any other genre out there. So
okay.
there's something about like reading horror that I really like. So this game was kind of interesting to me. I think just because the graphic art style was kind of evocative, and just the idea of like a horror visual novel. It was like, oh, I've just never haven't. I'm sure there's ones out there.
Dozens,
I'm sure there's tons out there. But I just one that's not a death game I had not heard of. So anyway, so Paranormasight is a really, really cool game because I think it has like the best spooky story vibes of any game I've ever played. Like easily. And by spooky story vibes, I mean there's this type of like, I call it like maybe like the atmosphere of Halloween, where Halloween is not horror. Halloween is that there's kind of like jovial, sort of like fun spookiness to it.
Yeah.
That you've seen like some horror movies, but not a ton. Like maybe Trick or Treat is kind of like where it has that, or like even like Night Before Christmas. There's a sort of fun like spookiness, and this game really, really captures that spookiness because it's basically a ghost story.
Okay.
And the whole plot of the game, not the whole plot, because you can't ruin that. That's what a visual
that
novel
is. The
game. Yeah. So the game, so the plot of this game, very loosely, is that one night there's these like a number of people get these sort of oh god, what's the name of these things? They're not stones, but these like kind of wooden carved objects. And if they kill enough people using these, and each of these objects has like a unique trigger to kill somebody. And I always love when you have like fun horror rules. So like everybody has their own rule for how to kill somebody with it. And if they kill enough people, they can bring somebody back to life. Okay. So the story is that you're following these 7 characters. They all have their own motivations of whether they are killing people or not killing people, who they maybe want to resurrect. So it's really, really cool as you're trying to understand these different stories that it's hopping between as this plot is moving along.
Do these people know each other? Like, is it like a 7 friend group type thing, or is it just 7 random assorted people?
It's 7 random people, and so like. And again, not trying to give too much away, but basically, if you kill somebody who doesn't have one of these things, it counts as like 1% in filling like the amount of people you need to kill. If you kill somebody who does have one of those things, you get like 30% or something like that. So it's all these people like kind of like hunting each other down in order to resurrect somebody, and everybody's got their own kind of motivations for it. Yeah.
So basically, okay, so let's say I had a stone, you had a stone, or wooden thing or whatever. So we all got them independently.
Yes.
And I'm going basically like, I can bring back to life my if I kill Doug and 3 of these other people. Yes. But I don't know you have one.
Yes. And sometimes we might like a lot of conversations are, I know you have one, you know I have one, but we don't know what the trigger is or the rule is to set off each other's like a little object thing. So for example, I'm going to try to say, here's a really basic one. One of the triggers for one of them is if you lie to me, then I can instantly kill you with it. So I am trying to get you to lie to me. And then yours, you might have a trigger. So there's some fun, like,
psychological, like, interpersonal skills, like, in terms of communication. Does it dialogue choices, or does it just run through?
There's no dialogue choices, so it's like, there are sometimes there's choices that can, well, I'll talk about that can kind of lead to, like, alternate endings, but it's not really choice-based, so it's mostly just reading. So you're just, like, seeing these 2 characters kind of play off each other. There is some interactive elements where you're trying to survive a conversation. By not triggering their stuff. But sometimes when you do trigger their stuff, it gives you additional options the next time you go through. But it's really, really cool seeing these 2 characters, especially as you start to like know the characters, of like them playing off each other and like doing these like these standoffs of trying to kill one another. The thing that's also really cool is like throughout the game, you're learning who has these objects. and not only who has these objects, but what objects they have and what triggers they have. And
do you as the player know?
You don't know. You find, well, sometimes you do, and sometimes you do. The game's like very clever about like hiding certain people from you until like certain reveals.
Okay.
The thing that's like really, really cool about the game though is that they have in the background, there's a sort of like notebook section, but you really have to like learn the story, because every once in a while the game will like give you like a reading comprehension test of like do you understand what's going on in the story, because you can kind of deduct what's going on of like who might have certain items like as you're playing along. And by like really understanding who these characters are and reading that thing as it updates, you get these sort of like challenges, like whether or not to pass it. And there was one I kept getting it wrong. Like they're asking like, who is this character? I kept getting it wrong and wrong and wrong, and like finally I figured out, and like the guy's response was like, I don't know if you really know what's going on here. And I was like, because there's the one thing I didn't mention is that in the background of all this, there's like a Tales of the Crypt Keeper type character who's telling the story.
Oh, okay.
And then you keep running into them as the player every once in a while, who's like, oh, are you enjoying the story that we're telling here? And obviously that comes into like, play later on is like larger stuff. But I really love that sort of like Tales from Crypt, spooky story. Everybody's kind of playing out for one another. One of the fun things too is that this game has a ton of alternate endings, but it will tell you at like which story break will cause an alternate ending.
That's nice.
Yeah. So like, I know I missed something, like what it'll kind of show you like a story tree, and it'll say like at this point will kind of be like lit up in a certain way. That's where I need to go back to get the additional story beat if I miss something. The thing that's like a little disappointing about the game is that the first part of the game, like the first night when people like things are really popping off, is super, super exciting and super fun. But there's sort of a plot point where these things don't work so well during the day. So the first thing starts at night, very spooky, super cool. A lot of people are trying to kill each other. Yeah. Then there's like this kind of like long period in the day where they're like their things don't work, and it's just like the story kind of slows down. And then obviously it speeds up when it gets to the next night. And the other thing I had was like the ultimate conclusion of the story, when I got like the true ending and everything, was not as satisfying as some of the bad endings that were in the game. Like it was really interesting because some of the bad endings, like where a character dies where maybe they weren't supposed to, was like, actually that makes more sense as like the conclusion. Yes, yeah, it's like the one where everybody loses. Actually, that's like just such a more interesting ending than this ending that I got at the end. Some of the other things I didn't quite like is that some of the characters will jump to conclusions where you're like, I mean, I guess that could work that way, but like they're right. So I was thinking, I was like, oh, okay, so that's like a red herring of like what that guy, because he just came to that conclusion by putting some very simple puzzle pieces together, and I was like, oh no, I guess that was correct. But that happens like a few times where I was like, maybe this game's not as smart as I thought it was. But sometimes the game can also be super clever on how it hides stuff from you and that kind of thing. So it is like, and this might just be visual novel stuff. Like, I don't know. It's like like a book also can't be interesting the entire time and hit everything.
Well, and I mean, everything has that. I mean, Persona has times where you just sit in school for an hour and a half at a time.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. But it is cool. Like all the characters like are pretty interesting. I do like bouncing between the two because there'll be like a big plot point that happens, and you kind of get to see that plot point from a different character's perspective. Mm-hmm. And because the characters are kind of playing off one another, you're kind of like in your head, you have an idea of like who you want to win and like kill the guys, and sort of thing. And the one of the story concessions they make that I really liked is that once you get a handle of one of these things, you get this really intense murderous intent. So it allows people, you get a cool cast of characters who wouldn't normally be killing people, getting them to kill people, and they're feeling that stress of like feeling this murderous intent and wanting to kill people when they normally wouldn't. So it's just a really cool game. It's really fun. It's really spooky. It's not super violent, which I liked. Yep. It is just a really good ghost story, and the music is like genuinely excellent. Like I love the music because there's not a lot. The game just has like, because it's just like talking heads the entire time.
Is it still images? Is it just still images with text?
It's
or is it
kind of
like...
it's still images, but they are like, they'll like emote but it's just like it's still images talking, but they emote. It looks better than a standard JRPG. There's like a lot of kind of cool camera movements and stuff they're doing, so it is visually interesting. But the only other thing going is the soundtrack in the background, and it is such a good soundtrack. It is so perfectly capturing I'm telling a spooky tale on a windy dark night kind of vibe. So like one of the things that's like really fun. So I was playing the game a lot at night. It's just like a fun, spooky story to read at night. Like I didn't feel like since I was like a kid, like reading just like a book at night sort of thing. It's like it just has that sort of feeling that I really, really, really liked. It actually has an achievement of playing the game at midnight, which I thought was kind of cool. I didn't get it because I need to sleep. But
it's approaching 10 p.m. right now, and I know that you're like, I gotta go to bed.
I was like, I have one more recording of this. It's super, super cool. It's really fun. If you like spooky ghost stories, just generically, if you like spooky ghost stories, it's really fun. It's got a cool mystery. I don't know if I like the final true ending, but there's about 5 or 6 other endings in between that I found really, really enjoyable. I really liked it to the point where it's like, and I really like that it has sort of that Tales from the Crypt sort of like a guy is telling a story that they could just make 20 more of these things. I'd be totally on board for any more of these things. Just super, super cool, super fun, silly, scary, funny game.
Dumb question that will determine a lot of if I ever play this or not. How long did it take you?
Pretty long. It's like 10 hours. It's like a 10 hour game.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
I was expecting when you said that like 20. Okay.
No, I feel like there's a visual novel like 100 hours.
Exactly. And that's why I asked. Because I feel like with a visual novel, like that 5 to 10 range I can do, but like anything past like 10, 15, I'm like, nah, hard out.
Oh, that's like people like, oh, you really, it's like Fate of Morgana has like 95% and it's like 110 hours or something like that.
No, I can't even read a book that has more than like 200 pages.
Yeah. So it's a short, spooky, fun little thing that everybody should try. Yeah.
We are First Gaming. Subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment below. There's a link to support us on Coffee as well. We'll see you later.
Bye.